For me, mankind's progress is happening fastest in the tech sector. That's why I fell in love with sous vide cooking. It brings technology into the kitchen. So I thought I'd make a dish with items that I foresee in the future kitchen. They are a water circulator to enable sous vide cooking, an induction cooktop, which is the most energy efficient way to heat any pan, and a blowtorch head with a Searz-all attachment, so we can get a nice professional crust on our food. So here's our first new appliance. This is not a heating element like this stovetop that we use here. This is not getting hot. This is just a magnet that is exciting the molecules in this pan, and the pan is just heating itself. So this is not hot here. You could use regular butter, but there's no heat loss with induction. It's probably the greenest way to cook. There's no gas. It's as fast as gas, turning on and turning off. And I mean, there I have clarified butter that is fully melted. Rub it into the board. In order to start building the flavor, we're gonna blowtorch it before and after. All right, cool. This is probably the newest kitchen utensil. In the olden days, and you remember a few years ago, I would just blowtorch directly onto meat to sear it, and that sort of left an unburnt fuel taste. Since then, the lovely culinary professionals of the world have figured out a way to make that taste go away. So, here is the Searz-all. Well, the flavor's there now. So now we started the caramelization process. I can already smell sort of a barbecue-y smell. And now, look, you can see obviously the meat is not cooked. Let's take this clarified butter. We're gonna pour it right into our bag here. Here's a few sprigs of thyme, and those will go right there like that. Now I wanna get all the air out of the bag. So what you do is you zip it across, and you just leave a little bit open. And as you pull down here, the pressure of the water pulls the air out of the bag. All right? And then you zip that last bit. And now you can see the air's out of the bag. We can set a temperature down here. I like to do it in centigrade. I think if I click it, it turns to Fahrenheit. So we're aiming for 134 degrees Fahrenheit. You can just put it in, it's fine. So here we go. The meat cannot overcook because we're never going above this temperature, because we're not cooking with air, so moisture isn't lost. It's all contained in this bag. We'll give it an hour. That will give us enough time for that 57 centigrade to penetrate to the center. And when we cut it, it should be seared on the outside and consistently, gently cooked all the way through to the center. So I'm really excited about this type of cooking. 2 years ago, it was really out of most people's price range, and really, really high-end chefs were using it, and like trains in Europe and planes in Europe. So it's the secret of the best chefs, but it's also the secret of food service, because you can make so many items perfectly, because you know, it's not, now we need to take it out, otherwise it's gonna overcook. No, it's more like, take it out in a 15-minute window, otherwise the texture will suffer slightly. Gosh. I'm thinking that we'll cut up some shallots, we'll saute the heck out of them in the remainder of our clarified butter here, and then we'll add some cheap balsamic vinegar. We're at setting 1. Watch how fast when I turn this up, this comes to a boil. There's 9. There's 11. Boom. There it is. That's pretty cool. Reduce that down to almost a syrup. It has reduced. It's been 40 minutes. I'm gonna unplug this bad boy. And here is our, believe it or not, fully cooked sirloin filet. Put our grate over our dipping sauce, I guess. And this way, anything that falls from our beef will go directly into the sauce. We'll throw this in as well because, oh, amazing. Sous vide cooking doesn't leave a nice crust on the beef because it never reached a temperature where any caramelization is going to happen. We did a little bit before, so some caramelized flavor would be there as it was cooking in the bag, and that has softened up. And now we're gonna do even more, so that we get the actual crust, not just the flavor of the crust. See that right there? See what happens. Now it takes a second to bloom up, so it's gonna look a little gray at first, but it will come out lovelily. And the reason it needs to bloom is because there's no oxygen in that bag. All that oxygen gets really, really old, and so you can see it right now, it's turning redder. It's so tender and juicy in here, and also you can notice no juices are running out because it's such a gentle cooking method, sous vide. It's not like extremely hot and then letting it rest so that everything settles back. It's just gentle. So all that juice stays inside.
Wow, look at the difference in
from bloomed. Now they will become the same in a second. Am I just a gross human? Like,
No, man. I'm so envious.
Good texture. 40 minutes. Now the gray ring that formed, that's due to the blowtorch and that surface heat that was coming in. That's how normal cooking works. That's why you get gradients of doneness. But you can see how uniform this is here. Had I not blowtorched it, it would be uniformly done out to the edge. A dollop of our balsamic, sort of syrupy shallots. That is a piece of beef cooked with all weird modern instruments. I think we should all be happy knowing that classic dishes will still be around. They're just going to be executed in a more consistent manner, you know, thanks to these tools. This is sort of ridiculous, but it's also brilliant. This is kind of silly also, but it eliminates error. That means less food thrown away, you know? We're already having a food problem shortage around the world. If everything is cooked perfectly, that's less waste. Look at how soft that is. Oh, yeah. First of all, the shallots with the reduced balsamic vinegar have a tangy, savory, sweet thing going on, which is really, really great, and not overpowering. Actually, it complements the beef quite well. Sous vide beef, on the other hand, or any type of sous vide meat, is super interesting to me. Look at how soft it is. I'm not saying it's better. I'm not saying one method is better than the other. I'm just saying, is this better than a wood oven? No, it's not. It's easier, it's more convenient. So here we've got our like future beef. That's what I'm calling it. Future beef.